million miles away. That's where Webb will do its science. Webb will be moving so fast, it passes its orbit in 1.5 days. Half the time it took Apollo astronauts to reach lunar orbit. First, we lower the sunship path. Then raise Webb's primary mirror and instruments away from the sunship. Solar wind will push us around with the sunship open, so we'll unfold a trim tab to help keep us stable.
We got these huge, iconic, golden segment mirrors that will help us deliver amazing new images from the cosmos. But in some ways, the sun shield is a lot more complicated, and it's just as essential. Without it, nothing works.
Here we've got 5 sun shield layers, approximately 8,900 square feet, almost the size of 3 tennis courts, a very thin Kapton material, about 1 to 2 thousandths of an inch thick. Making them go where we want them to go, 0G, is extremely challenging.
The sun shield shades the telescope from the heat of the sun, earth, and moon. The concept is simple, but there is nothing simple about the design or operation, especially when you get to space. Webb's sun shield assembly includes 140 release mechanisms, approximately 70 hinge assemblies, 8 deployment motors, bearings, springs, gears, about 400 pulleys, and 90 cables totaling 1,312 feet. All this just to keep the sun shield under control as it unfolds. First, we release these special restraints that protect the sun shield during launch. They roll out of the way, but not all the way until we are ready to deploy a side. Next, we release a set of covers over the core region. Now comes the critical point. All 107 sun shield release mechanisms need to fire on key. 107. They free the 5 sun shield layers, allowing them to extend as the mission is deployed.
The sun shield fully deployed, we start setting up the optics. First, the secondary mirror is extended and locked into place. A special radiator behind Webb is extended, which helps further lower the temperature of the science instruments. Finally, we open the primary mirror's wings and lock them. That done, Webb is in its final configuration, but we're not done yet.
After 47 deployments, and accomplishing the hardest spacecraft unfolding NASA has ever done, Webb still won't be ready for science.
While the instruments cool, control motors, each of Webb's 18 mirror segments, the secondary mirror, and flight steering are located inside the center of the mirror. We precisely align the mirror segments to form a perfect mirror. Then, Webb will be ready to explore the cosmos.
Hey everybody, this is Beck, and I'm a maker of music. And like the great Sun Ra said, space is the place.
And I'm Laura. I work at NASA, and I use AI to explore.
And I brought a few friends along to do something about artificial intelligence.
Hi, I'm John.
Hi, I'm Isabel. We are both artists working with NASA using artificial intelligence.
This has been so.
That's the bet. You just released a set of new music videos using a lot of NASA imagery, and I grew up living in space, and obviously those images are used by scientists. What inspires you about space, and how you came up with this idea?
Well, the title of the record came from a video game, a really primitive video game from the 80s called Asteroids. When the asteroids were going to kill you, and they were just about to collide with your spaceship, and you would hit this button, and then you disappear and reappear somewhere else in the galaxy. And I always wondered what that button was called, and I looked it up one day. It was called hyperspace. So I sort of it got my mind thinking into music and song here. Because I think in some way I think of music as sort of a hyperspace button. You know, it's something that we press play on a piece of music and it takes us somewhere out of the lives, out of our circumstances. But I did like the feeling of the music. That there was this sort of thread of outer space, kind of wide vista of space and time, you know, existing in the songs.
Artificial intelligence is the ability for machines or computers to make autonomous and intelligent decisions. That can look like recognizing patterns or analyzing images or learning certain behaviors and then mimicking them.
I mean, right away when we heard hyperspace, we thought we have to use AI for this. Beck was already creating a sonic environment that went to like the edges of our understanding and the way that we see. And that's something that we're most excited about with AI, it expands our modes of thinking. And then just the title, hyperspace, literally means to go beyond 3 dimensions. The one that we use for this particular project, it literally works in a 512-dimensional space. In order, the process begins with the AI training on the images. So if we showed it just a few hundred, it wouldn't know that much. But what was so great about working with NASA's decades deep, archival knowledge is that it could really learn. So for weeks and weeks, the AI trained on as many images as we could show it. I think it looked at over 25 million images. Sometimes that was multiple times looking at the same images to try and understand these images.
Yeah, basically imagery of anything in our solar system is how we get started in the process of exploration, right? And so when we first went to Mars or when we sent Cassini to Saturn, we had some thoughts about what we might find based on that imagery, and that's what allows us to really focus down on the type of science we're going to do.
I work a lot on the database creation, and I feel almost like I could draw a picture of the galaxy now just from going, like anyone can do, just by working on the NASA websites and going through the archives. Like the AI would have been able to take that and recognize colors that were happening a lot, recognize shapes that were happening a lot. I remember when it first showed us what it thought Saturn looked like. I was blown away.
Yeah, and even then, seeing these images and getting all the info, it is overlooked. We're talking about other worlds, we're talking about other realities we probably will never get to experience in our lifetime. This is the closest we'll come to touching the unknown. This project is so interesting because it really came out of the theme of the record. I would have loved the idea of taking sounds from these missions in space and putting them into the music itself.
The coolest thing that we have coming up, which we can point you to when it comes out, is that Perseverance actually has 2 microphones on board. It's the first time we'll have real audio from Mars. So we'll have audio as we're landing on the planet, so that during entry, descent, landing, and then we'll have audio when we're driving, or the rover has a laser, and so you'll be able to actually hear that laser zap on another planet, which is kind of something that's kind of hard to even wrap your mind around.
And that hasn't been recorded before?
No, not with a microphone, not this way. We've never had a microphone on the rover.
Okay, well, send those audio files my way. Yeah.
Absolutely. So on Perseverance, we actually have an extra computer in it. So that extra computer allows us to make the rover smarter. And we actually self-drive on Mars. So the rover has to take of the area in front of it, literally build its own map. It can then identify different types of obstacles and slopes, and based on that and its knowledge of where it's able to drive, it decides on a path.
The Mars database was in one of the...
Good morning from Mission Control in Houston at the International Space Station Flight Control Room here at the Johnson Space Center. We are just 1 hour and change away from the homecoming of NASA astronaut Mark Vande Hei and Russian cosmonaut Fyodor Dukhrov. After almost a year in space for those two and 176 days in space for Soyuz commander Anton Shkaplerov. The trio are suited up in their Soka launch and entry suits, ready for a deorbit burn, 4-minute, 39-second retrograde firing of braking maneuver of the Soyuz MS-19 engine to complete the trip in orbit for this trio that undocked from the International Space Station almost 3 hours ago. Everything aboard the Soyuz spacecraft is in readiness for the deorbit burn that will enable the Soyuz to drop out of orbit and begin its descent back into the Earth's atmosphere, with all of its systems honed in on a remote landing site southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan, Kazakhstan, and a parachute-assisted landing that will bring to an end for Vande Hei and Dubrov what amounts to a 150.6 million-mile mission, the equivalent of some 312 round trips to the moon. Shkaplerov wrapping up 176 days in space. Vande Hei and Dubrov wrapping up 355 days in space. For Vande Hei, that is a record for a single spaceflight by a U.S. astronaut.
Tulog.
Late Tuesday night, the departing crew members gathered in the Rosviet module of the International Space Station to say their farewells. Vande Hei on the left, Dubrov and Shkaplerov nearby. Oleg Artemyev, newly arrived Russian cosmonaut, by the hatchway as they said goodbye to their Expedition 66 counterparts and made their way through the hatch into the Soyuz MS-19 to begin undocking preparations. They conducted leak checks at the docking interface between the Soyuz and the Rosviet module, then suited up in their Soka launch and entry suits, and began final preparations for the undocking of the Soyuz from the Rosviet module. That undocking occurred at 2:21 a.m. Central Time, 3:21 a.m. Eastern Time, as the International Space Station flew over the South Atlantic at an altitude of 260 statute miles. Slowly but surely, the Soyuz backed away from the Rosviet module. They back away burn of 13 seconds, enabled the Soyuz to distance about 70 meters from the International Space Station, at which point Soyuz Commander Anton Shkaplerov took over manual control of the flying of the Soyuz to enable his cosmonaut crewmate Fyodor Dubrov to move into the upper section of the Soyuz, or the orbital module, to begin about 30 minutes of videography and still photography of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. Once that was complete, Dubrov returned to the descent module, the center section of the three-section Soyuz spacecraft. He buckled up once again in the left seat, Shkaplerov in the center seat, and Mark Vande Hei in the right seat of the descent module, preparing for the deorbit burn that is now just over 15 minutes from now. Mark Vande Hei's homecoming in just over an hour for a parachute-assisted landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan will wrap up, as we mentioned, a 355-day mission. For Vande Hei, the completion of his second flight to the International Space Station puts him third on the all-time list of U.S. astronauts at 523 days in space behind Peggy Whitson and Jeff Williams. Vande Hei, in this mission, again, he did not conduct any spacewalks, but with his 355 days, he eclipses the previous single spaceflight record by a U.S. astronaut of 340 days set by Scott Kelly several years ago. Anton Shkaplerov is wrapping up, as we mentioned, 176 days in space. He, now with 4 missions to the International Space Station, will have logged at the time of landing 780 days in space. That puts him 7th on the all-time list.